There's always two guys, no more, no less. A master and an apprentice. And what I mean by that, of course, is Mr. Hearn whispering something in Anthony Joshua's ear surrounding the Usyk fight. Who does want this fight and who doesn't want this fight on Team Joshua? You've obviously got Joshua fans saying that Joshua wants the fight, he's going to blast Usyk away. You've obviously got Usyk fans saying that Joshua's going to duck him and he doesn't want the fight. Now look, all I know is this. Last few days, the puppet master himself has come out and said that they want the fight in September, potentially either at Spurs or at Wembley. Both great venues, no doubt about that. Hopefully, if it does happen, we can get a lot of fans back in there. But I think that Joshua probably is up for this fight, but I'm not sure how many people in Team Joshua really do want the fight deep down. I think if they could have it their way, they would have gone in another direction if they could still keep the belt. But I think essentially Team Joshua has realised that we've got to fight this guy. It's as simple as that, you know. And I've still got reservations as to whether the fight really does happen. I hope it does, because I've said in a previous video that if it wasn't Tyson Fury, there isn't anyone really I want to see Anthony Joshua fight right now. Not that you could make realistically anyway. There's no point even discussing Wilder because that fight's not going to happen. And I'm not really sure I'm interested in that fight anymore. I think, you know, the ship has sailed for that one as far as I'm concerned. So if it's not Fury or Usyk, I genuinely don't know what other fight I'd be excited for concerning Anthony Joshua. Now, obviously, my big concern is that obviously both guys have been out the ring for a while now. Usyk hasn't been in the ring since the back end of October when he fought Chisora. Joshua, of course, has been out the ring since December when he beat Pulev. And obviously, a lot of the criticism that Usyk is getting is that people seem to think that he hasn't looked great in his last couple of fights, or the only fights, I should say, that he's fought at heavyweight. Now, look, as far as the Chisora fight, and obviously a lot of the criticism he's had in that fight, guys, Chisora was trying to knock Usyk out in that fight, especially in the early rounds before he got gassed. And if you've got a pressure fighter like Chisora coming towards you, trying to knock you out, guess what? You are not going to look good. Whether you're Alexander Usyk or a journeyman, you are not going to look good. It is that simple. Okay, and as for the deluded fans that seem to think that Chisora won that fight, guys, if anyone's watching and you actually think Chisora beat Usyk in that fight, my advice is very simple. Call up your local GP, book an appointment as soon as you can, and get on some medication, because I don't know what fight you was watching if you genuinely believe that Usyk lost that fight. It's absolutely crazy. Now look, as far as the fight itself, it wasn't a pretty fight. It was quite ugly. I think there were some lessons that Usyk has probably learned, that you can say that the Chisora fight was valuable. I think he's proven that he can at least obviously deal with the strength of a heavyweight. Now, obviously, it wasn't a great matchup as far as showcasing his skills. That is a given. No question there. But I think there was certainly some value of the Chisora fight. I would have liked to have seen him do another fight at heavyweight before going in against an Anthony Joshua. But we are where we are. As far as Joshua's last performance, I don't know realistically what Joshua would have learned from knocking out a 39-year-old Kubrat Pulev, other than maybe getting a bit of his confidence back. And hey, maybe that's all he needed. Maybe he didn't need to learn anything else from that fight as far as being a technician, other than just getting some confidence back. Because I don't think he would have learned much as far as boxing skill. I mean, Pulev, the bizarre thing about that in that fight is that Pulev, who's known for having a fantastic jab, barely used it. So it wasn't even like we can say that Joshua added a few things to his arsenal as far as, being more technical, working outside of the jab, getting in close to Usyk. I think it was just, or Pulev, I should say, I think it was just a case of maybe getting his confidence back, and maybe that's all he needed. But either way, I think in an ideal world, they would have come off the back of the Pulev victory and said, right, we're going to defend against Usyk, but we want another fight first. And at least then Team Usyk have said, fine, no worries. We've been out the ring since October. We want another fight as well. And I think ideally, similar to Chisora having his fight with Parker in the spring, I think Usyk would have gone off and had another fight in the spring. Because at least then he would have had just a 6-month gap, which is normally about average for the big fighters. They normally fight every 6 months on a good rotation. But now, obviously, if we're looking at September, if that's what we're meant to believe as fight fans, then that's almost a year. Almost a year sitting on the shelf. And Anthony Joshua, he'd have been on the shelf for 9 months. We're getting to a point now where when these guys start their pro career, they have about 3 fights a year. They pick up a belt. They then fight twice a year. They unify, and they only fight once a year. I mean, Anthony Joshua is just a once-a-year fighter now. He had that fight at the back end of 2019 against Ruiz, got his belts back, had a year out the ring until he fought Pulev, and it's almost another year until he fights again. And this interview and a couple of others I've seen of Eddie Hearn, he's saying that, it'd be good to get Joshua back out in December. Guys, whether this fight is the beginning of September, middle or end, there is no way Anthony Joshua is fighting 3 months later. No chance. I mean, Dillian Whyte just fought in March against Povetkin, and they're not talking about getting him out until the back end of August, but potentially even September. So there's a big gap now between fights. And like I said, the top guys, they're not even fighting once a year now. I mean, look obviously what's happened with Fury and Wilder, both out the ring. What are we looking at now? Time they do fight, if they do fight, we're going to look at 17 months. 17 months. And I know you can say, yeah, well, it's because of all the legal issues, etc. Look, legal issues or not, 17 months. It's unbelievable. So look, we are where we are. Despite everything I've said, I really do hope we get the fight. I'm still on the fence as to whether it does happen. The more you watch boxing, the more cynical you become. You start from saying, well, they've announced it, so it must be happening. And then you go to, I won't fall for that again. We'll wait till there's a press conference. There's a press conference, the fight still doesn't happen. And now I'm almost thinking, well, till these guys get in the ring, we don't know what's going to happen, do we? So look, let me know your thoughts. Does the fight happen in September? If it does, who wins? Let me know in the comments. Cheers, guys.